Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome and welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness. I'm just going to drop in. When I do these videos, I'm dropping into a deeper, coherent state, and I just kind of tune into the field, and I call them my higher guidance team. I have a team just like everybody has a team of guides, angels, galactics, beings or energies and frequencies of sound and feeling. And I like to expand my antennae, so to speak, out to kind of receive energy and messages and share that with you guys in hopes that it'll help raise the frequency, awareness, feeling of expansion. I want to do a little recap before I go into that complete state. First of all, I want to share that many of us are already in that state of flow on a regular basis. When you have synchronicity showing up, you're usually in a state of flow. Let's rephrase that, especially when you notice the synchronicity that's showing up. Oftentimes, I work with clients who are really intuitive, yet they're not quite sure how to put the pieces together. Sometimes they don't even know they're intuitive. Are we all intuitive? We all have intuition. It's part of our innate, built in toolbox. Yet some people are more aware of it than others. When you're more aware of it, it makes it more accessible. And this is kind of the message that's coming through is awareness. So some of the key words are adapting, adaptogenetics, adapted, our genes are adapting, awareness, frequency expansion. I could go on and on. These are just some of the words that my guides have been using a lot more recently. And so when we heighten our awareness of our synchronicities, and what is a synchronicity? I encourage you guys to look it up if you don't know what it is. But it could be something as little as, you're talking with your friend about well, there's so many different things, but we'll just start. Well, let's say you're talking with a friend and you say, I really love the color purple, and I just feel like I want a purple, I want more purple in my life. Then you go to drive to work, and all of a sudden in front of you pulls out a purple car. How often are there really purple cars? And then you go and you come to work and your coworker is wearing purple and they never wear purple. Those are silly little things that once we become aware of those, they tend to happen more frequently. They tend to happen on a more regular basis. And I'm going to kind of play with this a little bit because I know I've had people ask me, well, what good does that do? Okay, so what? The car in front of me is purple. The person next to me wearing purple, and I happen to talk about purple. That doesn't help me. It isn't about the purple. It's the awareness that is essentially helping us. However, I would also venture to say that in oftentimes the synchronicity can also help us. So, oh boy, I wasn't planning on going here with this, but apparently this is where the guides are kind of saying to stay on track with this. So we could just say, okay, I'm aware, purple's in my field. But for us, that could have a deeper meaning. It could have association with the crown chakra, which is associated with the color purple, and amethyst, and that has a frequency. It could be a sign that something is going on within our crown. That's why we're drawn to that color. So to be aware, we might have more of a headache. And that headache might be because we're adapting to a frequency or an incoming energy that's creating a change in our body and our physiology. And so it's the way of our field or our environment feeding that back to us, letting us know what's going on through analogy, metaphor, through synchronicities, through whatever it might be. So then what happens is we create a communication through symbolism, in this case, the color purple, and we attach meaning to it. Now, for the logical, analytical, sciencey folks, they're going to say, yeah, we're attaching a meaning to it, and that's what it really is. For the woo-woo folks, they're going to be like, well, that's our angels talking to us. It's all the same. It just, our definition of what it is really irrelevant. The guides want to share with me the relevancy is our feelings about it, our response to it, and what we do with it, and how it enhances our life. Because the more we become aware of these synchronicities, as a for instance, the more we become aware of life, the more we are aware of our surroundings, how we feel about our surroundings. It brings up questions that we maybe didn't have before. It brings us answers to questions we may not even have realized we had, if that makes sense. And this is a beginning state of awareness with our environment, with our field, the soup that we're all in. And as we begin to exchange with it in such a way that allows us to feel more, understand more, feel more connected, that enhances our inner abilities. I'm looking at the wrong camera because I'm used to looking at the other camera in my computer that's having a meltdown. It helps us to not only adapt, but to read between the lines, which is using our intuition. So the first state of awareness is awareness. Um, and that's just one example. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I think it's important to talk about why synchronicity is usable, important, helpful, and it's fun. The more fun we're having, the more we are able to receive uh, or use our tools of receptivity. We become aware of what's happening in our bodies more because we we feel our goosebumps and we recognize. So, one of the things I've noticed is that when I'm in a, and this is maybe something you guys, I would invite you to ask yourself if this is something you've felt before too. When there's a lot of incoming energy and frequency, sometimes what we do is we put up our protection because it feels uncomfortable, because we're not used to experiencing heightened states of awareness. So, synchronicity can be a fun, easy, gentle way to connect in with our intuition, to read between the lines, to feel more connected, right? But sometimes that awareness, we are fighting, we're resisting it. I found myself in resistance this week. I found myself feeling agitated and on edge a little bit and feeling as if I was putting up a buffer. And all of a sudden, I didn't realize I was doing that until I heard birds. And I was hearing these birds. And I was like, these birds have been making these beautiful sounds for the past probably who knows how long I've been outside. And I've been ignoring them. I shut it down because I was putting up this buffer zone to blocking whatever this energy was that was making me feel uncomfortable, which shut down my antennae. And I thought, wow, how often am I doing that? And I'm inviting you guys to pay attention to that. This was a very powerful, energetic week. This is a helpful tool no matter what time you watch this video or listen to it. But through the month of September, it can be even more challenging to recognize when we're trying to protect ourselves from the bombardment of energies. And let's just talk about that for a moment. Well, what are those energies? Well, we've got planetary energies, we've got solar energies, and we have collective human energies. So we're having this influx or bombardment, is what my angels call it, right? This bombardment of photonic light and our bodies are having a chemical response called evolution or ascension. And um ooh, sorry, I had a little bit of an interruption there. But bombardment. So that's where I was, right? And so we have this bombardment of energy that's coming in, and we're also being bombarded by a lot of the other stuff. Okay. And I'm not going to downplay the other stuff because even though we might say it's old energy and, it's just being recycled and we still feel it. It's very emotional for a lot of people right now on all sides. Um, because for a lot of reasons. Ooh, where do I take that? There's so much to go into. So essentially, I'm hearing bridging the gap. So in my previous video, I talked about the wedge, and thank you guys for your comments on that, by the way. Very good. And if you guys are leaving comments, I really encourage you to leave comments for each other. I don't always get to read them. When I do, I'm always amazed at how expansive you guys are. But it helps each other, sometimes, because sometimes you might have a suggestion or a tool that could benefit somebody else. So I invite you guys to leave your own comments about anything that you want. That's a good, that's a nice comment, preferably. If they're not, I will delete them. Because it's not necessary to be negative at this stage, and this is where we're bridging the gap. There's a lot of negativity that is being recycled in the ethers, we'll call it. And this negativity is because of fear. That's always what it boils down to. And a fear of not being liked, of not being understood, of not being whatever it might be, not being good enough, or it's a safety device sometimes where we feel like we're part of something if we attach ourselves to that belief structure. And when that belief structure or attachment gets rattled, we don't like it. We feel like we have to, whatever it might be, we feel like we have to do. We're all collectively intertwined. So when something major happens to somebody in the collective that's negative, we feel it. It's a ripple effect. I'm not going to get into all of the things that have happened in the collective negatively lately, but I'm going to go back to share the dream that I have had multiple times now. So sometimes for me, I started off dreaming. That was, I would say, probably from my memory, um, my, I call them superpowers. We all have superpowers. In actuality, they're not superpowers. They're just part of being human. The difference is, I'm going to go back to what I was saying in the beginning, like with synchronicity. I know I kind of went off on a tangent there. Synchronicity is a useful tool to help ignite our superpowers. I also want to touch on the fact that we are also activating each other. So I'll talk about that in a little bit or in another video. I don't know. I want to cover so much. So I've been dreaming about mutants. And again, I'm not a huge Gene Keys. No, I don't know much about Gene Keys. My dear friend and sister, Candace, convinced me to buy the book, and it is a very thick book. And I think I've opened it twice. Actually, that might not be true. Maybe a handful of times. Just to glance at something, and then I close the book again. But we all have these dreams that are connected to the field, right? Sometimes they're our subconscious giving us messages and downloads. My dreams, since I was a little girl, would come true. Not like in the Disney sense of magic dreams coming true, but some things would happen and I would dream about it. I would dream about this happening to a person or that happening to a person, and lo and behold, it happened. It's not something, though, that I can necessarily use to change the world. But what I can share is that it's a tool that I can use to recognize what's happening in the world. And my dreams have been, and technically I could use it to change what's happening in the world because each of us is doing that on our own, in our own individual and unique way. But my point is, if you have a dream about, let's say, a tsunami, it doesn't mean you can stop the tsunami. It just means that you're able to be aware of something before it happens, which can help how we respond to it. It gives us an opportunity to react and respond. So if you're one of those dreamers, and this doesn't happen all the time for me, it just happens once in a while, we can then not be so overwhelmed by it if it happens. So in my case, I've been dreaming about people who've crossed over on the other side because of activities that have been negative from one perspective and or adversely or negatively affected someone. So let's think about what's been happening in the collective. We just had a massive, upheaval because of the shooting that's occurred. We've had multiple attempts at people's lives. This happens all the time. And what I'm dreaming about is the ripple effect. And in my dream, it's a mutant. We're all mutants, like X-Men. And essentially, apparently, according to the gene keys, there's a mutation that's happening. And my guides keep calling this mutation an epigenetic. It's a play on words. It's epic what's happening to our genetics. And again, it's not provable at this stage, but it will be down the road. A lot of people are talking about this in their own way. Again, Richard Rudd is talking about it. Is it Richard Rudd? Gene keys, I think. Anyways, he's talking about it in his own way. We call it ascension. Some people call it evolution. Whatever you want to call it, our genetics are shifting and changing. And my dreams keep calling it a mutation. And it's like X-Men. And what my dreams have been showing me is that when one mutant crosses over, it opens up the ears of the other mutants. Not to call us all mutants, but it's a play on words. I'm just thinking of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's kind of like that. So it opens up our ability to listen. And all of a sudden, we're listening and we're going, something doesn't sound the same. Something doesn't sound right. And that is one of our biggest resources is hearing. We start to hear things differently. We start to hear somebody say something, but we feel something else. It's opening up our superpowers, and it's directly connected to our inner ears. For right now, inner sight, when you go to the doctor, it's ears, nose, and throat. So it's opening up throat, ears, smell. Smell is also like I smell a rat. You can use smell as an extrasensory tool. Okay. My point is, we're being called to listen and to expand our inner awareness. And when I say listen, it's hearing the sound behind the sound, ears to hear. And we're starting to see what's going on. And we're starting to shift how we respond to it by coming together. So in my dream, there were all these mutants that didn't know they were. And here we are saying, hey, guess what? You have this superpower. And people were saying to me, that's not a superpower. And in my dream, I'm like, yeah, it is. It's a superpower because you have this. The person next to you is not using it. So that's your superpower. They could use it, but they're choosing not to. And what I was being shown is this is turning on for a lot of people. I also notice that it happens in clusters. So sometimes I call it the honeypot. Like it'll happen in a cluster of people. And part of the reason I feel that it happens in those clusters is so that those people have each other to talk about it, to use as a resource, to bounce ideas off of each other, and to activate people. People have chosen to move to certain areas for that reason. And they've also chosen to spread out for that reason. So it's happening. We've all spread out all over the map. And now these little clusters, my guides were referring to them as grapes, are pop, 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 popcorn opening. And this is causing a mass consciousness upleveling. Okay, so that's a little recap. I'm sorry I went off on a little bit longer of a tangent. The other thing that my guides have been showing me is this. So have you guys ever seen the chevrons? So they kept showing me that this is one reality, and this is another reality. And essentially, we are bridging these realities, and then they're going to come together. But right now, a wedge is being created between them. And it's creating this wedge is on purpose. We could say that it's for the purpose of negativity. But what they're showing me is the purpose is actually to create more space. So I don't really know. I know some people are saying that we're going to have two separate realities. And once we get far enough away, we're not going to be able to see that old reality, but it still exists. And that might be one perspective of the truth. From my perspective, and again, I could be wrong about this, or let's just say have a slightly different variation of how I see it. I don't really see that we're going to be separate. I see us weaving together and bridging both of those realities. So the reason we won't see this other reality isn't because we've split off into space somewhere. It's because we've built so much around it that it no longer looks the same way. And that's what I'm getting. So what they were showing me is that it actually what's happening is this, but right now it feels like this, so that all that space in between, I'm hearing, gets filled with space dust. All that space dust gets to assimilate and create new particles or elements. And us as light workers, humans, whatever you want to call us, the ones, and I'm going back to synchronicity of what I said in the beginning of the video, the more aware we are of how we're responding, what our purpose is, what makes us happy, what we want to see in the world. Intuition isn't just about being able to precog an event that's going to happen. It's about us. It's how can we use it for our personal well-being? That has a ripple effect and has a greater connect or a greater impact on the collective well-being, inevitably. So it's creativity. I don't see intuition and creativity being separate. For me, I see them as one in the same. For as we explore our creativity, we're doing it intuitively. Why do we feel called to paint a picture? That's creativity. That's our intuition coming in. That's part of us that's connected to something bigger than our linear go to work, drive our car, eat our food, watch TV. When we pull in a painting or a drawing or a dance move or whatever it might be, an idea that just comes out of the blue, that is intuitive recognition that we are essentially utilizing to bring into form in our own unique individual expression of that form through that form as form. So the guides keep showing me that it feels like, right, parting of the Red Sea, feels like our brains, like it feels like there's people that are going off totally on the right and totally on the left. Yeah, sure, politically. But I'm also being shown that as the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Like there's such separation that people aren't able to bring it back into, hey, we have two sides here and both are useful. So that's what it looks like. But that wedge gives us momentum. It gives us this, what I'm being shown is like tension. And it's sometimes that tension that creates the coming back together. So that's what I'm being shown. And again, that's just my own perspective. I don't see. So what I'm being shown is I'm being called to just draw this really quickly. I'm being shown this. That's what we're doing. So while these are all wedges, but we're essentially, the red in the middle is the light workers connecting the dots. And what do those look like? Diamonds. So we're moving into this diamond codex or frequency. And it's this in between space that is where the creativity happens. That's where we're at. So, so funny. My last two videos were all about wine and grapes. I think one of them was at least, but using it as a metaphor. And what just showed up on my other computer that had the meltdown earlier that now is finally restarting. You know how your screen will come up and and this is, the brand isn't Apple. It doesn't have like the AI that's on it. It's old. It's grapes. It's a vineyard. You guys, I can't. Synchronicity. There's a perfect example of synchronicity. Now, granted, our phones do listen to us, so we could call them fake synchronicity. That's a whole other topic. That is not an example of that. Anyways, so the universe is showing us a reflection of what we're focusing on sometimes, right? So this diamond diagonal, these lines currently feel disconnected. But what I'm being shown is that we then create these new patterns. And I also am being shown that these signals, so let's go back into here for a moment and pretend like this seems like it's closed off, right? And that seems like it's closed off. But then we send out these signals and intersect, we intersect, we intersect. And what this does, I'm being called, is it creates more points. So, um, but here's the points I'm being shown. I think I've drawn this before, but I can't remember. So those are the points. Let's say call this the lower. Let's go 3D, 5D. And this is 4D. That's not accurate because 4D is not, that's not what it looks like. But let's just pretend that we have a lower dimension and a higher dimension, or a lower frequency of reality and a higher frequency of reality, or an old timeline and a new timeline. And these dots are connection points that create a point of focus. And so we have access to all of this when we're here, and we have access to all of this when we're up here. But we're creating the bridge where we have access to all of that. And essentially, these points become part of a bigger creative space. And it's almost like what I'm hearing is you don't want to cut off a limb if you don't need to, kind of thing. So the idea is we think that we just want to leave everything behind and we do not want to bring it with us. Get rid of that baggage, clear out the old agenda. We don't, and that is true to a certain extent. But what I'm being shown is that don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like making soup. You want that base. So there are nutrients, I'm hearing, at the galactic core that we're essentially able to restore and create a new expression of. And this goes back to genetics. So it's not like we're going to just completely be a new human without the bones. I'm hearing it's good bones, right? So you want to use the bones. It's like construction. When you're building a house, sometimes you have to use the old bones and the old foundation to then build on. That's what we're doing. So it's not, from my perspective, just going to be gone. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. And that's what we're feeling now. So I'm going to do another video where I share what I channeled this morning, in which they were talking about the fact that we're oscillating in this space. So we feel super wonky. There's a couple videos I want to share, and I'm going to invite everybody to check out that are not my own. And I might even start off at the beginning of the video sharing those videos. Carrie K, I think, is kind of saying the same thing in her own way. She does a really great job, I think, of just expressing. And of course, everybody I'm mentioning right now, I'm not saying I agree with them 100%. I just take and glean what resonates for me. So I invite you guys to do the same. Just because somebody has a concept of reality doesn't mean they're going to be in their heart when they're expressing it, right? And I'm not saying that's her. She seems lovely. What I mean is, like, we might hear, let's say, a scientist come out and tell us something that is about reality, and we're like, oh, that makes sense. But that doesn't mean that they grasp the entire concept or that they're 100% accurate, just like me. I'm not necessarily grasping this 100%, or am I 100% accurate? It's just my perspective. But I really enjoyed her perspective, which was in coherence and in resonance with what I am getting informationally as well from my team. And then also there's a new video out. Sorry, I keep getting phone calls. So let me just kind of, I know I've been kind of blabbering on. Is druthering a word? I think druthers is a word. Anyways, what I'm going to do is drop into a little flow with the guides, and I'll probably split this into 2 videos. So I might do that, actually just kind of end on this note. So I know I went into several different kind of areas to talk about here, and then there's so much that we could pull up from everything that I'm sharing. But I'll keep going and diving more into the physics that I'm being shown down the road. But I just want to end on this note. Even when I want to dive into the physics about things, the guides are like, the physics are coherence, resonance, a consistent resonance that we are holding to stay in a state of coherence despite what it looks like, despite what it feels like. It can be volatile right now. We can feel uplifted. We can feel dropped down. We're going to have moments where we're not really sure. What I'm hearing is it's an acceleration. And so we're going to have moments where things feel like we can't keep up, and other times we can't slow down. So it's just this we're just not used to operating that way. And it's going to take time, so to speak, to acclimate. And we're doing the best we can. And recognizing that a lot of other people are doing the best they can too, even if they don't see things the same way we do. They're not supposed to. Otherwise, we'd all be robots. So that's where I'm going to end on that. And I'll do a channeling for now and kind of see where the guides want to go with all this. Okay, so this is meant to be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear basis. And I just set my intention as I drop into my heart, as I drop into my body. I'm dropping in to expand out from that space. And it gives me a heightened awareness of the field that we're all connected through. And so we are, each and every one of us, a point in the spectrum. We are, each and every one of us, an individualized point of source. And it is through our frequency that we resonate as source from one perspective. That's play on words. So from one perspective, right, we are one and we are part of source. So we're just individual points that are in expansion or expression of source, God, love, whatever you want to call that energy. And so we invite you to see the diamond within. We invite you to hold a perspective of deeper perception that allows you to join in, to anchor in these frequencies of higher receptivity, of higher light, one might say, that rises and takes us above the fight or flight response to what is happening apparently around us, or what seems to be happening around us, For we are intertwined in such a way that the fabric of reality is shifting on this very day, at this very moment, in every moment and every given moment. We open to continual expanded views of consciousness as consciousness. And yet we are being called to be conscious of this. Those all play on words. We are being called to consciously call out consciousness, to call out to it and to resonate with it. For when we are unconscious of our actions, when we are asleep at the wheel, one might say, we miss the varietals. Back to the wine grapes association. We miss the opportunities that are arriving for us right on time. So we are being invited to recognize that time is on our side. And we are being invited to be in the center of that side, to be in the membrane, if you will, to be that which is holding balance, equilibrium. We invite you to feel balanced within your own equilibrium so that you may independently and collectively navigate in this new energy and frequency of reality that each of us is transitioning through currently, that each of us is co creating through as currently, as currents of energy that is adapting to the frequency that is expanding all reality, all realities. For it is not just our reality that is expanding. It is not just our perspective that it is expanding. It is expanding as a collective that is held within the collective C frequencies and energies that we are all exchanging information with, that we are all communicating with. And so, how would we like to communicate is important. And so, as we allow ourselves to fall under the spell of love and being shown, oh, I'll come back to that. Compassion, peace, creativity, joy, laughter, sadness, expressing and feeling from a depth of human contemplation that allows us to contemplate things in a completely different compilation, a completely different set, if you will. A completely different binding mechanism is then created. And what we were bound to before unlatches, if you will, and we are able to latch on to a different corridor. Changing stations, if you will. It allows us to change our stations and to set ourselves up for a greater rate of expansion, human expression, adaptation, inner reflection, and it allows us to come together in ways we never would have imagined, for it opens our imaginations. I'm hearing it like the ability to be in a state of coherence and imagination creatively opens more of our imagination. And we begin to believe, we begin to see, and we begin to create more expansive versions of reality because we can see that which we were unable to see before. We are able to hear in a deeper state of resonance than we were before. I'm hearing here, here, like if we come into an agreement. Here, here. So I guess it's an old term for like agreements. Whew. We begin to uplift into a greater state of expansion and expression. And this takes us out of the harmonics that have held our reality in place for quite some time. It allows us to hear the sound behind the sound. It allows us to hear the music, the drum beat, the rhythm. It allows us to hear the heartbeat on which, in which, through which all is created, creating, creatively accessing, expanding, as in the breath. We then are able to breathe a bit more at ease, and we are able to breathe more life into the reality that was only a potentiality before. Instead, we walk down that path. We open all of the doors and let the air in, let the light shine, let ourselves feel the expansion of what true freedom is, to allow ourselves to feel into the freedom of what already is. For it is not something that is beyond your reach. It is not something that is beyond your capabilities. It is not something that you are creating in a land far, far away. For it is here today. It is here now. And I'm hearing here now. Listen. HEAR. Hear, hear. More references to ears. And so listening with true states of listening, not openly trying to think before you speak, you innately feel and speak from a deeper sense of resonance rather than no sense, senseless speech, senseless actions that are taken because of the lack of sensing beyond our five senses. The actions that are being taken that are beyond that bigger and greater sense of being more than we think we are. For many are reacting and taking actions based on a reaction on the earth plane because they can only see the plane they are flying. They can only see out the window on one side. They can only see the wing or the engine. They cannot see the entirety or the reality from an eagle eye view, so to speak, a bird's eye view. Put yourself in that perspective. How small do you feel seated on an airplane, looking out the window? You might be able to see one small piece of the entire whole. And yet, when you close your eyes, when you listen with your eyes, when you feel into your inner resources of feeling, beyond the fives, beyond the five senses, beyond the single-mindedness that we have all been taught to listen with or to listen from, you start to sense reality as a greater whole. You start to feel the connectedness to the greater whole. And through this sense of wholeness, this completeness, if you will, you begin to tie up loose ends and complete things that have been left incomplete for many generations. You are able to close out generational gaps, if you will, pockets of distortion that have been played out over and over again, but have continuously pulled us in because of our lack of wisdom, or better spoken, because of our lack of ability to listen to our own inner wisdom, because we have been in or thinking from a place of lack. And that in itself is a distortion. For we are now traversing a very expansive portion of time, one might say. It's the play on words. I'm seeing port, ion, portion. And you, every single point, you as a human, every single person as a point of source is playing its own role, its own perspective course, if you will. And so, what would you like to play? What course would you like to traverse? What is it that you would like to create? And as you traverse these new realms of the innate, you begin to let go of the materialism, if you will. Not in the sense of floating away and operating outside of reality or the body. You do it through operating through the body. You do it through operating from and through this reality. Yet this reality is less material. We begin to see beyond the scraps that we have been piecing together, that we have been handed to pay attention to focus on as our only means of transportation. Play on words. As our way of getting by. And rather than just getting by, we begin to expand out in abundance. We begin to feel abundantly expansive. And because of this feeling, this knowingness, this inner communication, this listening, we hear more. We receive the answers that have been stored within us. We let go of the patterns that we have been repeating, for that is something we no longer need. And we begin to move away from isolation. We begin to move away from the materialization of, I keep hearing, living in a material world. Like, we begin to tune into and realize the deeper realization, which then materializes before our very eyes. Therefore, the magic becomes real. For we are each and individually creating magic. We are the magic markers, one might say. And we are erasing that which is not concurrent or necessary to reprogram. So I'm being shown, like, rather than reprogramming things into, like, it's, you guys, it's big. It's really beautiful. I'm just being shown that these skills come from listening, feeling, sensing, the skills of creating magic. It's all around us. It's not separate from us. We've just been told that it is, kind of thing. And so We share this message in this way, unscripted. Yet, according to scripture, the us versus them, the survival, and this is not reference to the Bible. This is just, it is written. What we have read has told us a story. And yet, we are being called to get out of our head about the story. For we have not read between the lines or interpreted the information that has been fed to us through the one track mind, if you will. Instead, we are listening to other tracks that have been on the record the whole time. We didn't know they were there, and we can hear them singing to us. The record keepers, the rocks and the stones, the sounds of inner earth, the sounds of the universe, those songs that have been covered up, so to speak, that have been re recorded. We begin to hear the original recordings that are written on our own inscription, on our DNA, on the human blueprint that is in each and every one of us. We begin to hear them singing to us our DNA, our own personal song. I'm hearing redemption song. Redemption song. Is that what it is? Redemption song. And we begin to, I'm seeing butterflies coming out of it's like rebirth, phoenix, rising phoenix. So allow yourself to come from where you have always been, connected to the true source of creation. They're playing with the words creating, creation, creatine. Not promoting creatine, I'm just saying I'm basically seeing like energy. Allow yourself to feel the connection point to the original source, the instrument of grand design that you are actively designing, that you are actively co-creating through your own instrument of grand design. And we would invite you to feel into that original energetic structure that is coming into the material, needing less material, less density. The light body, one might say, the wholeness and completeness of being more than just the body, yet expressing this as a human. And we express this as an energetic signature as well. For many of us that are in this collection of energies and frequencies that this particular human, Carrie, is expressing through, we are you from one perspective. We have been where you are now, before, in the future, now. And as time passes, you too will see that this is merely a rite of passage. This is a passage in time that each of us is actively creating now. So for now, we sign off, sine wave, and we reassimilate at a different point, as a different point, as the source point and creator in the creationary aspect of the whole. And in wholeness and completeness, we say, I'm hearing sayonara, like sign, anyways, sine, wave, aura, auras. Anyways, I'm going to end on that note. So it's interesting because as I've been doing these channelings lately, the energies that are coming in and the ways in which the guides are communicating is slightly different and more like just feel, expand, allow. It's really quite a beautiful feeling. In love and light, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Namaste.